Hello and welcome to another glorious sunny day in Devon. Yes, we've had 2 days dry, so that's not too bad. This episode's about, we're going to sing the praises of no day actually, because it's been so wet, and yet I've been able to transform this plot from the mess it become a bit really to what you'll see today. And I'm quite impressed by how I've been able to get on the plot and actually change things around for the better in quite a short space of time. One of the things I have done is on this bed here. Ignore the grass, that's just a little playing around with something. I'm just trying to see if having grass trapping a little bit more heat makes any difference whatsoever. I really doubt it. Just ignore it. This is new potatoes. Now we are down in the very mild southwest. Please ignore the fact that I've got mine already. Don't feel under pressure that you've got to do it. We are very unlikely to get much in the way of frost now, going by the season's averages. So I and many others will take a chance and get the earliest potatoes in.
After 3 weeks of being under the black plastic, the shoots should be through. So it's time to expose them to see the progress. This is now the 20th of March, and let's see what the progress is. And yes, the shoots are through. It is now time to earth up these shoots, because we want to simulate as much protection for the newly emerging shoots as possible, and give them room for the actual tubers to grow and multiply under cover of darkness in the soil. This is really as easy as applying another layer of compost. Nothing technical about this whatsoever. Please excuse the weeds. I haven't had a particularly great year, as I may have explained before. And yeah, this compost that I'm using now is the compost I made in December. So yeah, it's in really nice condition. Quite pleased with this batch. Nice and crumbly, not too full of bits. Good result, I reckon.
And there we are, all fleeced up, protect against frost. Very heavy duty fleece, that one, so it will stand a degree, maybe two, of frost for the potatoes. Proven in combat before.
Right, it's also now time to plant the second earlies in, because they're slightly slower growing. Now then, this is perfect for no dig, because you just plant them on top of the soil, because second earlies, just like first earlies, are determinate potatoes, which is a good way of describing their growth habit, which is that they all grow on one level. They don't grow up the stem like a main crop will do, indeterminate potatoes. So by planting on the soil, they grow on top of that level, and they grow into the compost that we're now applying, making harvesting unbelievably easy. I only did this for the first time last year, and honestly it's totally converted me for the ease of growing for this particular types of varieties. Again, this is the same compost I made in December. Lovely stuff. And yeah, it's nothing very hard. It's such easy growing, it's unbelievable. And it's just building those compost up until it completely covers the tubers. There will be a second application of compost on these, and of course in the meantime they get the same treatment of black plastic coming along and covering over the potatoes. Dreaded black plastic. But in this particular case it does a good job, and all it is about protecting those newly emerging shoots from any frost and wind chill, of course. I am this time going to try and leave the top section that you'll see in a minute uncovered as a Right, let's just talk about successional sowing of potatoes. These are quite well on, planted in January. This is a variety called Red Duke of York, planted in the end of January. And this one here is Casablanca, planted in the first week of February, I believe it is. So we've got 3 stages of growth. My wife and I like new potatoes. They're very useful in the kitchen. Don't like it all the time, so I just want a few now and again. This one here was a variety called Maris Bar that I planted late last year and never harvested, but the tubers are regrowing, so I just dug them up, replanted them, brought them into the warmth. It's been that mild down here. The Red Duke of York is from seed, and this time of year, as you'll notice, they're not great looking plants. These are not going to win any prizes for being great specimens, but these will give me the earliest crops. I hope to have this one before the end of April. And what they do is they kick around in my greenhouse wherever I can stuff them. They start off on the top of the benches, but as the benches fill up with all sorts of other things, then they get relegated to down here type thing. These are fairly newly planted potatoes. And then more over here. Yeah, so and the ones I've just shown you will be living over there, all stuffed in different areas that will benefit because I'm keeping this place above 4 degrees. So these can make the most of those conditions. And if they grow tall and leggy, that's absolutely fine by me, because I'll still be able to harvest a good crop of potatoes before the outdoor season gets started. Then I'll move on to the outdoor potatoes. Then I'll move on to the second earlies. And then I will do 2 things. I will keep some of the second early potatoes back, and I'll plant these even later, so that gives another batch of new potatoes later on. And then when I harvest these, I'll probably either replant the actual main stems, which doesn't always seem to work for me, or I'll replant a couple of the tubers after a bit of cool treatment. And by doing this, I'll have a successional harvest of new potatoes right the way through. My main crop are ready to go out. I do them in tubs, and I plant them up in 4-inch pots. They've only just been planted up, but these are ready to be put out into tubs when they emerge, like this here. That one's another new potato that's ready to be potted up into the big pots. It saves on space in the greenhouse, but starts the ball rolling as far as growth is concerned. Marginal benefits. It's just the way I like to do things. And I have got these to go out this weekend if it ever dries up a bit. The weather is lovely at the moment, isn't it?
This next section has been spoilt by the wind, so I've decided to narrate over the top. This bed you see in front of you has been spoilt because I have had to remove a tree in the centre just about here, and a couple fruit bushes back at the top. I've forked it over to relieve compaction, not dug it over, and I've applied a mulch over the top. And this way I'm going to plant this lot is going to hark back to my double digging days, and this would rely on the soil being this deep and double digging down to a second deep, so you got twice the depth of soil. Well, that's not quite the same on this patch, but we're going to apply compost to try and achieve the same effect. We're going to be planting directly on top of the soil level, and hopefully the potatoes will grow through the compost. More applications of compost and or mulch will be put on to a decent depth in this area. Main crop potatoes can be planted here, and you have got two types of compost. The lighter stuff is the December compost. The darker stuff is a wood-based material, very woody. Not overly pleased with it, but you know what, it's fine, it'll do. So this is just showing the bed at the start, forking down through, removing any weeds, not digging. This is showing it finished with my nice shadow in the foreground, and this is now applying the compost on top, just showing a little bit of the process. Now then, couch grass was invading from the path, so I've decided to do my usual anti-couch grass preparation, which is digging a trench. Yes, I know it's digging, but it's worth it to stop couch grass in its tracks. However, applying wood chip into a trench like this doesn't actually stop it. What it makes it do is when the couch grass roots down into it, it's dead easy to remove. So it's prevention, and it'll still need you removing the couch grass, but instead of the couch grass getting its roots down into the soil, it gets it down into the wood chips. Doesn't really like the nutrients levels, and it doesn't really thrive in that trench, so it's really easy to remove. Conventional planted potatoes are illustrated by the white labels in here. 12 inches apart, 24 inches between the rows, and it would enable 14 potatoes to be planted. With double dig, you enable 12 inches between the plants diagonally, which enables you to get much more in the area. It's not quite obvious in this area, but I got 21 potatoes in exactly the same area the 14 potatoes would have been planted conventionally. Planting is no different whatsoever. It's going down as far as the soil level, stopping, putting the potato on top of that, and then relying on the compost providing the protection for the emerging growth.
Right, there we are, guys. Another way of doing your potatoes. This stems from having the small tubers, and I'm thinking, well, this ground has been disturbed last year with the tree that was here and the small bushes, so it wrecked the soil structure anyway, I guess. So I forked through this rest of the soil using a sort of no-till method rather than no-dig. Added plenty of compost, not quite enough over there, but we'll see how that goes on. And I want to build up the layers. As I get compost finished, I'm going to build it up around the plants and provide a really good depth soil around the tubers. Bearing in mind it is main crop, which are indeterminate, so they will give out a crop as they grow through the stem. If you've got any questions, please don't be afraid to ask in the questions below. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one.